Welcome to toy-polloi.
Hello and welcome to another video from toy-polloi. Now recently I did a video showing how to repair the armour on a vintage Masters of the Universe He-Man figure, and a lot of people got in touch with me asking if I could show some more fixes for the armour, because the fix I showed was a fairly simple one. I actually have the figure here. You can see on the back of this He-Man the little clasp had broken, and I showed you how to fix it using a little piece of shearing elastic and drilling a small hole in the clasp, and that's worked really well because this figure is now a figure that you can display quite nicely. But obviously armour doesn't always break in the same way, so I've collected a few other pieces of armour recently. As you can see here, I've got various ones. Here's another He-Man armour. This time the little tab has snapped off completely on that one, and we have some Skeletal Armor where it's broken completely on this left hand side, and the middle sort of area has snapped as well. So I've got a few different versions, and I'm going to show you how to fix all of these today. But the first thing I'm going to do is put them on the figure so you can see why they need fixing. So here are two examples of what happens when you've got broken armour. This He-Man here, without the clasp on the back, the armour tends to sort of bulge out and doesn't look like it sits properly. Really what needs to happen is this armour is sort of pulled together on the back and just sort of hugs his body, so it looks a little bit useless when it's sort of broken like that. And as you can see on this skeletal on the left, there are so many straps broken on this one that it just won't hold in place. All that you've got is a strap left to hold it over his shoulder, and all of the other bits are broken. So you can't really even use it to display on this figure. But all of these things can be sort of repaired in such a way that this armour can then sit back on Skeletor and he'll look sort of half decent again. So really it's going to be a case of fixing all of these little pieces pretty much the same way as I showed you how to fix this original sort of He-Man armour by drilling holes and using some shearing elastic. But we should be able to get all of these sets of armour looking sort of nice and displayable again. The first thing though I want to do is actually to try and reshape some of these. Some of them, as you can see, are quite bent and distorted. This armour here has been left for a long time with the strap sort of poked in the little latch there, and it's bent out of shape. So I want to sort of reshape these so that they're back to a sort of more original shape. Likewise on this Skeletal Armor, you can see everything is a little bit sort of bent out of shape. So we're going to use some just boiled water, which we can dip this into, and it will soften the plastic enough that we can start to reshape it. And once it cools, it will cool back into its sort of natural state, which should help some of these distortions and mean that the armour sits a bit nicer. So let's get that started. So I've just filled this cup with freshly boiled water, and what we're going to do is take the armour and drop it in there. I'm only going to do half of this at one time because we don't want to get it too sort of soft, and it will immediately start to soften. You can see as soon as you put it in there. In fact, that has already straightened. Just the hot water itself has done that. You can see I can just rub that with my fingers, and that's taken the kink out straight away. And really that's all we're going to do to these, is just sort of warm them up and slowly sort of reshape them. So what was wrong with this one? I can't remember. That one was not too bad. This one again, the armour is a little bit distorted, so we'll just drop that in. You can feel it soften straight away as soon as it touches the water. The whole of the plastic sort of starts to loosen up. There we go. We can just start to reshape these to the shape we want. So there's quite a kink there on that side. And that's starting to look better already. We'll just do the other side. You can do the same sort of trick with the weapons. Sometimes the swords are sort of bent, and this will sort of soften the plastic up enough, or especially on Skeletor's staff, that tends to often be sort of bent and twisted. Just sticking it in the warm water will soften it enough that you can reshape it. So that's looking back to being quite new. And again, this one looks quite distorted. You can see it's all sort of bent out on one side, so we'll put that one in. Just for a few seconds, and now we can sort of slowly curve this back round. You can see immediately that's starting to look back to how it should do. We'll do the same with this bit that goes over the top of his shoulder. Okay, so they're already looking a lot better. I think that was the worst one because it had quite a kink in the little armour strap there. That's pretty straight. We do that one more time. Do be careful when dealing with just boiled water, as it's obviously very hot. You can see that has made quite a difference. So now the armour is sort of starting to look like it should do. And we can start doing the rest of the fix. We're going to start with He-Man's armour first, because this is probably the simplest one to fix, and it's very similar to how I showed you how to fix it last time. On this one the little sort of circular clasp had snapped, but on the one I have now that circular clasp is in place, but the little tab that sort of clips into it. So the way we're going to fix this is just to drill a small hole in what's left of the sort of tab side, and we'll thread some shearing elastic through it so that we can tie these two pieces together. Now to drill this hole I'm going to use a pin vise, and I've got a very small drill bit in there. It's less than 1mm, but that should be enough just to drill a small hole through this piece of plastic. So I'm just going to rest this onto my cutting mat, place the pin vise on top of here and drill down quite slowly. You just want to drill a small hole like so. You can see there's a very tiny hole gone through there, but that should be enough to thread some elastic through. Just make sure that has gone all the way through, which it has. So we're going to grab a piece of beading wire. This is the best way of doing it. Fold the beading wire in half, and then you can push that through this hole like so, and we'll use that to catch the bit of elastic and pull it back the other way. So I've cut off a very small length of elastic. We don't need a great deal, and I can thread this through the little hole in the beading wire. If I can't do that, you can always open the beading wire up a little bit. There it is, and now I can pull that back through the hole that we've made. Like so, we now have a piece of elastic through. So the next stage is to put this armour back on He-Man, and then we'll sort of lock it all together once it's in place. So I've got the armour on, here's the elastic, and we can just thread this through the original little latch hole, like so. And now we'll start tying this together. Put the armour together like so. I'm going to do a double knot. That should be good enough. From the front the armour looks like it's in place, and from the back it's now held quite firmly. You maybe want to tighten this a little bit more. I leave them a little bit loose just so there's not too much sort of pull on the plastic. And we get a pair of scissors. We can cut that off, and there you go, the armour is now held in place quite nicely. Now this skeletal armour is going to be a lot more tricky just because there's so much broken on it. You can see we still have the end of the sort of little latch mechanism there. That tab is just about holding in place. So I think what we will do is we are going to attach this back onto here, again just by drilling a couple of holes and threading some shearing elastic through it, and that should be enough to hold these two pieces in place, and we can do that off the figure. And then this one here, again we're missing the latch that sort of goes on the shoulder. You can see there's this whole sort of latch mechanism here that this strap should go into, and that is missing. So I think all we can do on that one is drill a little hole in there and a little hole in what remains of this part of the armour, and then sort of stitch those two bits together, and that should hold quite nicely as well. It's just going to be a little bit fiddly, and again we're just going to be using this shearing elastic, which you can pick up at most sort of haberdashery shops. I think this is about 50 metres and it cost me 99p, and I use it all the time for these sorts of fixes. So let's get started again. So here is the broken latch, and I'm just going to drill a small hole in the thicker portion of that. Again, it's the same drill bit I had for the He-Man armour. So there is that hole. We need a hole just about here, which is where we can attach it to. Just start that off there and then put it onto the cutting mat so I don't drill into my finger. Like so, and we want to have this strap, I think we can just sort of line this up a bit. We want it to sort of end up about there, so I'm going to drill a hole right through both pieces at about that point. So let's drill this one first. And then we're going to drill it just about here. You just have to sort of do this by eye. That every bit of armour is going to break in a slightly different way, so you just have to sort of work it out as you go along. I think that should be enough. So now we can start threading the elastic, and I'm going to sort of attach this piece first just because it's easier to do off the figure, then we can attach the rest while it's sort of in place. So get some shearing elastic, only need a small amount of this, like so. Again, I've got a bit of beading wire here which I'm going to use to thread this. You could do this with a needle if you wanted, but I thought I'd just show you a method that didn't require any sort of sewing implements. So I can thread the elastic through there. We'll pull that back through this hole. So you can see that's now gone through there. And we will do the same onto this part of the armour, but we need to make sure that we're going in and around the same way. So going in that way. Bend this bit of wire open. We want the elastic here. We'll pull that through. So now you can see we have these two pieces attached together by a tiny piece of elastic, and all I'm going to do is now tie a knot and do it as tight as I can so that these two bits are sort of held together pretty firmly, and that should be enough to hold the armour in place. So just tie a little knot on here. And we'll pull that pretty taut and tie that off. And then we can trim off the excess. There you go. It's not the neatest of things, but it will actually hold, which is what we want, and just make this armour so it is displayable. So I've now put the armour back onto this skeletal figure, and we can just check that the back clasp works. So we can just push that over there, and you can see that lower clasp is working pretty nicely. We can now go ahead and do exactly the same sort of thing on this shoulder armour. So we're going to get another piece of this shearing elastic. Just going to cut a small amount of that off, and we want to thread this through. I think I'll thread it through the lower hole first, just to sort of make things a bit easier. So here is the beading wire. Again, I've got a tiny little hoop there, and I should be able to push this through that first hole that I made, like so. We'll get the elastic, push that through, we can pull that back. Okay, so that's that first one done. Now on this top section, I think we need to go through that way. I'm just trying to work out which way around I want to go through the hole, so I'm going to push it through from the top. I'll thread this part of the elastic if I can open the wire up. Like so. And then we'll pull that back through. There we go. So we've now got it threaded through both pieces. And again, all we're going to do is tie a knot, and that should pull both parts of the armour together and hold it in place. So let's thread that through there. You want to pull this one quite taut, because obviously this has got to pull the whole of the shoulder section down, like that should do. Like so, we can cut the excess elastic off. And now you can see that armour, although it's not pretty, it is all holding in place, which means that when we look at the front of Skeletor, he looks like he should do, which is all important and means that this figure can be displayed again. So it's a little bit of sort of work to get it to fit, and it's never going to be a perfect fix, but it's certainly going to make the figure displayable. The other two skeletal armors that I have, now that they've all been straightened up, I actually don't have that many issues on them. This one here has a broken shoulder strap, but it's only broken in the fact that it's shorter than the original one. You can see there the right hand side one is the length it should be. So it will be a bit fiddly to sort of lock into place, but it will still hold. There's also a bit of a chew mark there. Someone sort of had a little go chewing that, but it's not broken completely through, so I think that will just do. And this one here, again, it's the shoulder strap areas that have some damage. The clips that the straps lock into, you can see there, those have snapped, but that actually doesn't make any difference to how well these hold onto the figure, because it's the middle strap part there that is the bits you need, because that's what locks onto the sort of the ratchet mechanism on the top part of the strap. So I think those will just hold in place. So let's put these on the figures, and hopefully everything will just look all right on these now that everything's been straightened. So we can clip these figures over, lock that back tab in place, and then we're just going to hook these armour straps down. So that one's got the normal length of strap, which means we've actually got something to grip onto to pull it through. And then this one just has a short strap, as I showed you, but I think we can, with a bit of sort of pushing and pulling, might be you need a pair of pliers to do this, but it will still lock in place. Yeah, there you go, that was actually held in place. So now that it's been straightened, that one works fine. Bring in one other skeletal. We can put this armour on. Now these are the broken latches, but as I say, it doesn't actually matter the way these are broken. They will hold on well enough. You can see it just sort of pings through the back there, but with a little bit of patience you can actually get them to sort of stay in place. You can see that actually holds in place reasonably well, unless you're sort of really sort of pulling around on it. I don't think you would notice that that had a breakage. Let's try and get this one through as well. Yeah, I think that's going to hold in place. So again, that one just required this straightening up using the freshly boiled water. And here are all the sets of armour back on the figures, and as you can see they are perfectly acceptable for display purposes. Obviously if you look round the back of some of the figures you can see they are held together with bits of the shearing elastic, but that's really not such a problem because it's the front part of the figure that you look at most of the time, and this is how I'd certainly display all my figures, so the fact the back is slightly sort of damaged and broken doesn't really make that much difference. And it's better to have figures with armour on than without, because they do look a little bit odd without the armour on. So certainly if you see broken armour, don't be afraid of buying it. Just with some careful sort of tricks and drilling of little holes and a little bit of shearing elastic, you can make them look perfectly acceptable. Now I do need to say a big thank you to Anthony Williams from the Masters of the Universe Grayskull Collecting, Buying and Selling Trading Facebook page, because I bought all of these broken armours off him because I've been searching for a little while to find enough broken armours to make it worthwhile doing a video. So thanks to him. And I also need to say thank you to Ian's Display Accessories, who sent me a whole box of various display stands for action figures, and I'm using the Masters of the Universe ones today, which look like this. He sent me a whole box of various stands. He makes stands for all sorts of figures, from Star Wars, He-Man, everything really. I've got a whole pile of these, so I'll be featuring some of these in future videos, but I will put links to all of the places where you can buy these stands in the description, and also to the Grayskull Collecting Facebook page. That will be in the description for this video. So I hope this video has been of interest to you, and thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching toy-polloi. Subscribe for more great videos. You can also follow toy-polloi on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.